I've been on the carnivore diet for a little over a year now, and it's massively improved my life. I'm more muscular, I'm leaner, I feel absolutely amazing compared to whenever I was eating like 300 grams of carbs a day and plants and vegetables, and I felt awful whenever I was eating those things, and I feel a lot better now. But on my carnivore journey, throughout this past year or so, a little over a year now, I've made a lot of mistakes, and I want to share with you what those mistakes are so you don't have to make them. Now, some of them are relatively common, others are less talked about, and so I want to go over just kind of the things that I've removed and edited in my carnivore diet to make my life a lot easier and better, and kind of get to the root of what the carnivore diet really is, which is just like eat good and don't have any sort of issues stem from those things. And so I'm just going to kind of go over the few mistakes that I made throughout my time on the carnivore diet. So hopefully, if you are curious and you want to try it out, then you start off on the right foot. Okay. If you don't know me, my name is Keegan. I help people get onto low carb / carnivore to improve their health and their fitness because it's changed my life. So figure I may as well share it to everyone else. So start out. First mistake is, I think a lot of people say this on carnivore diet, is that I didn't try it sooner, to be honest. Like, I regret not trying it sooner. I heard about it probably 3 months before I actually gave it a shot. And I really wish I just gave it a shot like the the week after I heard about it, to be honest. A lot of people, they're so skeptical about changing how their life is and how they go about things. Just try it, to be honest. Like, it's not going to kill you in 30 days if you give it a shot for 30 days or 90 days or however long you decide to give it a trial period for. No diet besides a diet that's like just pure heavy metals or whatever, like you just eat, I don't know, tuna or whatever, is going to kill you in 90 days, 30 days. And so if you're really skeptical about it, I still recommend that you try it out and give it a shot. Do it right. Go throughout the rest of this video and see all the mistakes, and find other people who have made the mistakes, and then don't do those things. Do it right, and then see how you feel. Because if you do it right, and then you get to the end of the 90 days and you feel like shit, okay, maybe it's not right. But I'm telling you, if you do it right, you actually will feel a lot better. Like, some people, they'll try it out and then they just do it wrong. Like, they'll just eat, just lean meat. They'll eat like 93.7 ground beef, and they'll say, oh, I feel terrible, my workouts were so flat. It's like, bro, it's because you're only eating protein. You're not getting yourself any energy from fat. Anyways, that was a little bit of a rant, but just try it out, really. Like, that's the first mistake I made. I learned about it in January of 2024, and I didn't really give it a shot until March of 2024, and I just suffered for like an extra 2 months. So yeah, give it a shot. If you want help, I'm building out a course down in the description that you can check out. 30 days of carnivore. It's kind of like a roadmap thing that you can follow. But moving on to the second, and this one was the first mistake that I made, was dairy. And so, yes, technically dairy is, I guess, carnivore because it is an animal product and you can have it. And I still do have dairy on occasion. But I stress the occasion part of that because dairy in of itself can be sort of compulsive. Like dairy is good for a couple of things. Like, it does have, it's an animal product, so it has a lot of, the fat soluble nutrients in there. It has lots of other good stuff in there, but it's milk, right? It's dairy. And in milk, there is these compounds called casomorphins. And you know how some people will say, oh, but if you eat too much cheese, you're going to get constipated. Well, that's true, because if you eat these casomorphins, if you consume them, it's going to cause you to get more constipated, right? Whenever people are on the, like straight up morphine and other drugs like that, they get constipated. And I used to think like, oh, it's just because you absorb most of the dairy. Well, while that might be true, there is also those compounds in the dairy. But why is this relevant? It's because the casomorphines, they will they can compel you to eat more than you probably should. And so that's why I only have stuff like cheese, and I don't really have milk anymore. Or, yeah, I have dairy on very, very rare occasions now. Like, it's maybe once a month I'll have some cheese. Maybe. It's not a ton. I used to, back whenever I was starting, I would just eat like blocks of cheese. And it's great. Like, cheese tastes amazing, but there's that little bit of an addictive component to it. And so I've kind of got off the cheese and I'm like, okay, I think I feel better now. And I'm not as bloated, I'm not as watery, because dairy, the casein proteins, are also slightly inflammatory in of themselves. Not terrible, but it still can be somewhat inflammatory. And so I just personally, like, I don't react super bad to anything. Like, I don't have any autoimmune conditions or whatever. But I just noticed that life is generally better without cheese, and I'm not really missing anything without it. I'll have it every now and then, but I kind of avoid it. And this kind of goes on to the next point, which is actually, well, it doesn't really, but this is the third mistake that I've made, which was I continue to eat processed meats. Now, processed meats in themselves, every now and then, like I said, on occasion, probably aren't too bad. However, processed meats, I mean, just it's processed meat, right? So, the bacon, the sausage, the bratwursts, things like that, while they may taste absolutely amazing, there's a reason for that. It's because they have spices, they have salt, they have sugar in them. I'm kind of building out this framework of like the four S's of satiety, the four silent, and the four S's of satiety silencing, something like that. But it's like sweeteners, sugar, salt, and spices. Those things, they mess with your taste buds, and they basically confuse your brain from getting the signal from the meat, saying it confuses it on if you're actually tasting it as, oh, this is actually tasting good, so I should have more of it, or this doesn't taste that good, it's kind of bland, I'm good. There's like three of those things in bratwurst, in sausage, in bacon, those sorts of things. They're cured with, like, they have sugar added into them, or they're cured with some sugar. It's not necessarily a great thing to have on a consistent basis, because sugar, I mean, as we should know, is addictive. It's a drug. And so if you even a little bit dashed in there, it's probably going to compel you to eat more than you probably should. I experienced that personally. If you don't have that problem on carnivore, cool. But I would still recommend that you avoid processed meat, just as a rule, and have it on occasion. Like, it's not necessarily banned, but just be aware that there's other stuff in there that isn't necessarily carnivore. That's important to recognize. And I learned that after having a bunch of bratwursts and feeling like, oh, I kind of feel like I had this weird bout of brain fog after eating a decent amount of bratwurst, and I was thinking like, whoa, that's weird. I feel like how I did whenever I was eating, some carb-filled meal, and it was really strange. I was like, what? This is weird. But it turns out, like, I looked this up later. I was like, what are the ingredients in bratwurst? And it was like sugar. Like, one of the first ones was sugar. I was like, oh crap, there's carbs in this crap. So just be aware of that. Processed meats aren't necessarily your friend. Have them on occasion, right? Like pepperoni, salami, bacon, sausage, those sorts of things. I'd rather exchange something like bacon for pork belly. Like, I've tried pork belly recently. It's so good. It's so good. and I'd much rather, it basically tastes the same as bacon, especially if you like air fry it, but it doesn't have the added salt and the sugar and the stuff that kind of messes with your satiety signals. Now, bacon tastes amazing, but there's a reason for that, so just be aware of that. This kind of goes on to the next mistake, which was salt. And this one is really interesting because salt is somewhat important in the beginning of carnivore, but in my opinion, I think it gets less and less important as time goes on, and you should really try and remove it as fast as possible because I spent way too long oversalting my foods. And now that I'm removing the salt from my foods, I can better taste, I can better understand the taste profile of the meat itself. I can understand, like, oh, this is actually taste good, or does this, not taste that great. I can understand that, and then I can judge my satiety off of that taste. Because, like I said, the four S's, the four silencers of satiety, salt is one of those things, in my opinion. And yeah, it's kind of a tough pill to swallow because I like salt to a degree, but sometimes I would just go a little bit too hard on the salt, and if I would oversalt, or I would mess with the sodium in the food, or I'd add bone broth that had salt in it, I would just start getting cramps. I'd start getting electrolyte issues. But ever since I've removed that, and I've just gone to just straight up just water and just meat and eggs, because I still eat that, I feel fine. I don't get any cramps. The electrolytes are fine. I don't have any of those issues. So in the beginning of carnivore, you probably will need to salt your food just because your insulin's going to come crashing down. So your electrolytes are going to need to be balanced out. So add salt then, but afterwards, just try and decrease the amount of salt in your diet basically as fast as you comfortably can, in my opinion, so you can get to just eating just the meat. Now, if you like salt, okay, fine, I guess. If it doesn't affect your satiety and you're cool with it, and it's all good for you, okay, cool. I still might add salt in the form of, salting my water or whatever, but I don't think I'm going to go back to salting my food unless it's already just kind of on there, or maybe I do something like a dry brine, or if I'm prepping a steak or whatever. But that's kind of a big one, is the salt. So just be aware of that. And if you have too much salt, this can affect the next one, which is stool management. Because if you have too much salt in kind of the food, it's going to draw moisture into your GI tract, and it's going to be a nightmare. And this is the next mistake, is my stool management. For almost 9 months on carnivore, I just didn't really give a shit. Get it? Ha, 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 ha. I didn't really care because it wasn't nearly as bad. Even if I went crazy on the fat and just the food in general, or I went crazy with the salt too, and I had a bunch of water, and the stools were really loose, and it was just disaster pants or just explosive diarrhea. Honestly, that wasn't as bad as the ginormous logs that I would pass. And I get this a little bit explicit, but whenever I was eating a ton of fiber, because my mom likes vegetables, and she would tell us, oh, you need to eat your broccoli and all that stuff. And so I would, because I thought I was being healthy. I thought chicken and rice and broccoli was the epitome of human nutrition. But I would do that. I would slam the broccoli down and be like, yeah, I'm getting my fiber in. Life is good. And then the bathroom situation was awful. It just hurt so bad, dude. Yeah, a little bit explicit, but it just sucked. And even the explosive diarrhea wasn't that bad, but it's still, now it's kind of okay, I need to address this. This needs to be fixed. And so these past few months, I've been kind of working, dialing in the fat-protein ratio, and I think removing the salt has really helped with that, because, again, I'm not drawing in a ton of water into my GI tract and just, exploding the toilet if I have too much salt and I drink a ton of water with it. So I've found that removing salt has helped me in that place. But also, I think it's important that you get in enough fat. Like some people, including myself, I used to really eat just the leaner stuff, and that's fine because you can feel really good with even just leaner stuff. But I've been increasing the fat content in my diet now to where I'm around 30-70 ish. Sometimes I'll do 35-65 within that range or so. But it's been getting more consistent, more regular, and it's not like little pebble stools. It's getting just like better. And so 30-70 means 30% of my calories are coming from protein and 70% are from fat. That's kind of the target range, and that ends up being around 1 to 1 grams of protein to grams of fat. And so I'm aiming for, and yes, I do track my food a little bit. Oh, no. Yeah, I do track my food, and for me, that's around 100 and like 135 each. Gets me to around where I need to be for the day, and I feel full from that, and I feel satisfied from that. Um, it's different for some people, but I would just say aim for around at least like a 1 to 1 ratio for your stool management, because I think it's just going to make things a lot better. Plus, fat, you need fat for energy. You don't need that much protein. Some people will say, "Oh, you need to have a crap ton of protein for muscle protein synthesis." And well, it can be nice because leaner cuts, they are abundant. To be honest, like leaner cuts of any meat is pretty abundant nowadays, just because of the propaganda. Um, the fat is still important, and I lost my train of thought. I'm gonna be completely honest. The fat is important, and it honestly just tastes better. To be honest, whenever you actually have fat in your diet, um, yes, that was the point I was going to make. You only need about zero point 0.8, I believe, 0.81 grams per pound of body weight for, like maximum muscle growth and retention, regardless of whatever. And so for me, I'm around 140-ish pounds, roughly around there. So I only need around 120, maybe, um, grams of protein a day. And so I'm well within that range if I hit 130. So just be aware of that you don't really need that much protein, but you're going to hit it if you have a 1 to 1 grams per pound, or sorry, a 1 to 1 ratio of protein, and then you just eat meat. Like you're going to hit your protein goal unless you're chronically under eating, which. And so the final mistake that I made on the carnivore diet was that I ate too much too close to bedtime. So it's important that you understand that fat doesn't digest that quickly. And that's good for a couple reasons, because it makes you more satisfied, it digests slower, so it's a little bit more even keel energy coming out. But it's also important because if you eat too much too close to bedtime, especially a fatty meal, you are most likely going to decrease the quality of your sleep. Now, some people, they can sleep through this perfectly fine. They can eat right before they go to bed and wake up the next day and feel amazing. I'm not one of those people, and this is the mistake that I made for a very long time because I didn't understand how the food was affecting me if I was eating too close to bedtime. However, I was able to track it with my Whoop, and I saw that my resting heart rate was just way higher every single night that I had like a late dinner or even a dinner that was within 3 to 4 hours of bedtime. And so as a practice, what I try and do now is I try and get breakfast in, I try and eat a lunch, and the latest I try and eat is around 3-ish p.m. because I go to bed around 9 or 10. And I know that sounds, relatively extreme. I'm not perfect with it. Some days I'll just end up eating around like 5 or 7, but I try and keep it lighter then, because if I eat too much too close to bedtime, my sleep is just straight up worse. Because, like I said, fat doesn't digest that quickly. It takes a while. I mean, you got 5 organs that have to work to digest the fat that you just ate. And so there's a lot of activity there. You're going to warm up. Like, Fun fact, last night I actually ate a fatty meal a little bit too close to bedtime. I was making these beef crackling rinds, right? I had some fat trimmings, and so I rendered the fat out of them. And I just ate the rendered fat, not the rendered fat. I ate the crispy bits that were left over as my final meal. But that was around 5 or 6 p.m. And yes, there was some fat in those things still. And last night, my sleep was absolutely terrible, at least according to the stats. I didn't feel terrible anyways, but my resting heart rate was super high. My sleep stress was higher, and that's because my digestive system was cranking. Whenever you're eating, your digestive system needs to turn on to act to, digest stuff. Like there's a reason why you have like a BMR, is because just for existing, you're going to be burning calories. And so if you kind of turn on that system too close to bedtime whenever you're supposed to be winding down, that's going to, there's a little bit of a contrast there. It's a little bit of a competition for what gets what. And both just become less efficient whenever you kind of try and combine them. So what I try and do, like I said, is I try and finish eating by around 3 p.m. So I'm kind of getting into fasting whenever I go to bed. And I found that really helps me sleep a lot better at night because my resting heart rate is way lower. Like I've been getting down to, the mid 30s whenever I do this right, and everything else is in check, like the room is cold and those sorts of things. It's very nice because the sleep is relaxing. I wake up, I feel refreshed. I just feel less refreshed whenever I eat close to bedtime. So just be aware of that. Try and eat all of your meals in the daytime is what I would recommend. Try and eat them, earlier in the day, at breakfast. I would recommend the latest be a late lunch, in my opinion. And I used to kind of believe this, you need, more meals in a day for muscle protein synthesis. I'm like, maybe that's true, but if you eat a big meal and it's sufficiently fatty, it's going to take a while for the fat and the protein to digest together. And so it's going to just be a little bit slower of a release into your bloodstream, from my understanding of how digestion works anyways. So even if you had 2 meals a day, if they were relatively spread out and they had sufficient protein in them, but they also had sufficient fat, it's going to be really even keel as you go out throughout the day. So that's my final mistake on carnivore, was eating too close to bedtime. I think one point I didn't touch on that well was the salt. Salt to taste. What I just want to point out, like, what I try and do now is I try and eat to how it tastes, and that's the reason why the 4 S's mess with that, is because you should, from my understanding, you should work with your tongue basically on, does this actually taste good to me right now? If it doesn't, then you're not really that hungry, because your hunger signals are going to be vastly different. If it doesn't taste that great, okay, well, maybe you don't need to eat right now. Just drink some water, get busy. Maybe you're just bored. If it does taste great, okay, firstly, is this a satiety, signaler that's messing with you, like a sweetener, sugar, spice, salt? Is it one of those? Or is it like the fat? Is it the protein that actually tastes great? Is it the meat itself? That's something that I'm learning, and I've been learning, and I think it's an important aspect of carnivore to understand. And I guess that's kind of the sub point a few minutes later from the salt. So that's another mistake, was I just try and just straight up just like pound food until I was full. Listen to your tongue, listen to your brain. Are you actually hungry right now, or does it actually taste good, or are you just eating for eating's sake? Because if you're just eating for eating's sake, then you're just kind of wasting energy. Honestly, you're wasting resources putting food in your mouth whenever you could save that for later and just use the energy you have now for other things. Yeah, those are the mistakes I've made on carnivore. It's kind of getting hot in this car, I'll be honest. Woo! But hope you learned something. If you like this video, go subscribe. If you want guidance on how to do carnivore for 30 days, then go check out the links in the description. There should be something there. If not, then email me or something. If you truly want my assistance, then I'll be more than happy to help you out. So, thank you. I'll see you in the next one.